All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us here at Fatty's. It's our coaches show, and I've got Stefan Miklakos up at the front. Let's give a hand for him. We're going to start things off with Steph. This is obviously your first time on Coach's Show, so just give everybody a little bit of background about you and how you got here to Macon.
So I'm from Pelham, New York. It's a small town just outside of New York City. I played 4 years at SUNY Geneseo. It's a small D3 school near the Buffalo, Rochester area. And I decided I wanted to continue my hockey journey and led me here to Macon.
Yeah, so obviously people have watched you for the whole season pretty much at this point. How would you, like if you had to describe your game in a couple sentences though, how would you describe yourself as a player?
I try to be a pesky little forward. I think I have some pretty good boots, so once I get those under me and can utilize them in a game, I believe I could be pretty dangerous. So, rely on my boots.
So on that note, you talked about your skating. What are the kind of, when you go out to play every night, what are kind of your objectives from an individual standpoint? Obviously, you want to do, play the systems, get the win, but what for your individual game, what's the most important things for you?
I believe always, starting a game, if you can get on the forecheck early and get a couple bumps as a forward, it's can help impact the game. Starting off fast like that, the game changes throughout the course of the 60 minutes. When you can start out on the upper hand, it makes a difference for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Does that change from game to game, or is that like a every game kind of thing? Like you're just looking to set the tone early?
Yeah, of course, consistency is key. So you try to set up to do the same things every game and be impactful like that.
100%. Mm-hmm. So last year was when you got your start here in Macon, right at the end of the season, the very last 2 games actually. Then bounced around a little bit at the beginning of this season. But for last year, how big was that going into the first off season for you to have had a taste of what pro hockey was like, even if it was just for a weekend?
Just spending that week here. Honestly, I learned a lot. I learned the pace of the game of the pro game, and I believe it was important for me to understand if I wanted to continue playing, because if I was ready for it, I thought I was, but I had to work on some things, so it was nice to know what to work on for the summer.
Yeah, well,
into the season.
This is your first off season after the college season. Obviously, everybody that we've had has said that that's definitely a different off season, the first one going into the pros rather than being in college. Talk us through kind of your camp experience. The beginning of the season, spent a little bit of time in Roanoke before coming to Macon. Kind of what that was like, and obviously now that you're here, you're definitely making an impact.
It definitely wasn't too comfortable, living out of my car and not knowing, unsure about what team I was going to play for, but lucky enough, I got the call from Chesney, and it was, they welcomed me here with open arms, and it's been great so far. We have a great group here, and I love being in Macon and playing for this great fan base. So
that's huge.
It's been great.
Well, and you made an impact right away. You had that game winner in your second game. What did that do for your confidence after the way the season started for you, trying to, getting in a huge goal late in the game right away?
It definitely helped knowing a couple of the guys, so I didn't feel too weird in the locker room, knowing some of the guys like Spoons and Allie, of course, over there. It was an amazing play from JT. He found me late in the third and helped us go up by a goal and get a big win.
Yeah. So, fast forward to this past weekend, kind of a similar instance. This time it was early in the game, getting the first goal of the weekend to go up on Huntsville. Now that you're scoring on a more regular basis with this team, talk us through that play, and then overall, is scoring something you're looking to do, or is you talked earlier about the bump and grind part of your game? What's primary for you?
Yeah, of course. I believe you'll get rewarded if you do the right things in hockey. That's what the sport's about. So that's what you try and do every night. It was just with the play. It was a great play by Krupe and Goldie. And then when you go to the paint, you get rewarded. So they found me, and it was a great play. And to get that 1-0 lead over a fast-paced Huntsville team, it helped us a lot on the weekend.
Definitely.
Because our defensive game was definitely there. So it helped us a lot.
Definitely did. You also got involved in some of the rough stuff on Saturday. Is that something that the team sets out to do? Like, how does physicality factor in from a team standpoint in terms of success?
I mean, of course, in this league, you're going to see those type of plays. You never want to see a guy like that go down. I thought it was a pretty dirty play, so I thought I had to kind of do something. My wires crossed, but I tried. We have our team does a good job at calming us down when we kind of act out like that. So probably should have controlled my emotions a little better. But I mean, you never want to see a teammate like that go down. So
yeah, for
just wanted
sure.
to do what I could.
The sweep this weekend, it was the first time in 12 games that the team had stopped alternating wins and losses. How do you take this weekend sweep and move it forward in front of a big longest homestand of the season coming up over the next 2 weeks with 5 games at home?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we know what it takes to, like Huntsville's, I don't know, they were top 3 in the league when we played them this weekend. So we're hoping that if we just keep playing like that, we can beat anybody. And I mean, it's of course our defensive game and how we play that fast-paced, gritty style, like in your face. So, I mean, if we can keep that consistent, I believe we can beat anyone in this league.
Yeah, for sure, and that's been evident throughout the season. We've got a couple fan questions that were written in before we get into questions from here in the house. First one was, how did it feel to be back in Macon after the starting the season? You were in camp in Fayetteville, then a couple of games in Roanoke. Being back here, you said you loved playing in Macon, but what was that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was more comfortable for me. Of course, knowing kind of how things were ran around here and just some of the guys. I mean, it's been great. I mean, they welcomed me with open arms. There weren't any. I mean, the team there are no issues within the team. We have great chemistry. Yeah, so we're all on the same page on and off the ice, and I believe that helps for us to have a winning culture.
Absolutely. Last one here that I have written down. Spent some time top tiers of U.S. Junior, then D3. Length of the season, has that been an adjustment for you in your first full year? This is probably already you've played more games this season alone than in any of your college years. So what's that been like for you?
Yeah, I played in the Knoll, so I mean, that is definitely a long season, not as long as this one. So I mean, yeah, I definitely worked on my conditioning a little bit. I knew it was going to be a tougher season. It hasn't been the easiest adjustment, but I believe I'm doing fine in terms of taking care of my body and doing the right things as a pro athlete. So if I can do that, I'm hoping I won't, knock on wood, have any more injuries. But you never know in the sport of hockey; anything can happen.
Of course.
But yeah, so I definitely think though you have to take care of your body the right way, and if you don't, bad things will happen to it. So.
Anybody here in the house at Fatty's got anything for Steph before we get Parker up here? Open the floor.
It's not necessarily about the Mayhem, but what do you think about the Olympics this weekend? USA Hockey, how it's on track?
Ask about the Olympics.
I mean, of course, I was going for USA. I mean, it's, the most hockey moment that could happen. Jack Hughes loses his teeth and there he's the game winner. It's like what I'm saying, you get, you do the right things in hockey, and sometimes you take some tough bounces, but you always get rewarded at the end of the day. So the hockey gods will be there for you.
Anybody else got anything for Steph? No? All right, let's hear it one more time for Steph. We'll get Parker up here to the front in just a second. Thank you. Great. All right, everybody, let's make Parker Allison feel welcome up at the front. Parker, this is your second full season in the SPHL, first one fully in Macon after coming in midway through. Played most of the season here, but a little bit into the season. Was your approach, first full off season as a pro, different to the one where you started right out of school? Kind of like Steph, he played a little bit at the end of his last year of college. Was the off season process any different for you this year?
A little bit. This season had to take care of a couple pre-existing injuries, so there was a lot of time spent with physical therapists, a lot of ATs, a lot of doctors. Getting back to 100%, feel great now, and really just wanted to hit the ground running hard with Macon with all that I have.
Yeah, like Steph said, it's obviously a grind and a long season, so being in good position is obviously huge. Dave said coming into last season, Steph touched on it a little bit as well, this team's got a very defensive identity. He got you in the trade last season. Did that make you feel any better, knowing that this is a team that was centered around defense, and he brought you in knowing that?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you have a coach trading for you. You already know that he has, he's already trusting you. I knew Dave was looking out for me coming out of college a little bit. I just decided to go to Birmingham for whatever it was, but I knew Dave always had interest in me. I knew it was probably only a matter of time before I got under him. So
that's awesome. So being a captain this year, wearing the A, was that something that you set out to do in camp? Was that something that was on your mind? And how have you handled how do you think that responsibility has changed this season for you?
Absolutely. I knew a lot of the older guys on our team last year, Jinian, Cupper, Winslow. A lot of them were probably on their way out, and with the group that we protected and had coming back, I knew there was a little bit of a hole with the leadership group, and I'm not afraid to use my voice in the locker room, on the ice. Last year being a rookie too, but I was just trying to come in and just be whatever the coaches and the team needs me to be.
That's awesome. Seeing a lot of ice time this year, obviously, all situations, even strength, power play, penalty kill. On the note that we talked about earlier with Steph, that's a lot of minutes on ice. How is your body handling that?
It's definitely a grind. A lot of time spent with Keith, on the operating table. But it's something you just have to put in a little bit more conditioning in the summers, and after some practices, taking care of your bodies each and every day. It's kind of a nonstop thing.
Yeah, absolutely nonstop. The D group this year, especially over the last couple weeks, it's been shaken up a little bit. Is there an adjustment period when you're playing with someone different, when you've got a new person to welcome into the room? Kind of walk us through what that looks like from your perspective, being the leader back there.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a challenge, that's for sure. But just preach to them, just to keep it simple to start. Don't really need to kill ourselves or try to be somebody that we're not really early on, and then get our confidence, our feet underneath us, and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, for sure. This team, talked about it a lot. Obviously, a defensive structure. We've talked about it tonight a lot, but also goaltending. It starts there and goes out. What can you say about the way that this team and the goaltenders have played so far?
Those guys are all stars back there. They are the heartbeat of the team. They're our best players each night, and don't have to worry about them. They always have the best attitudes. All three of them. Whether they're playing or not, they're always, pre-scouting for us, telling us the weaknesses of the goalies that we're playing against. They're on it every night. And we would not be in the position we are without them.
That's huge. Obviously, defensively, this team's very sound, but for you individually, it's also been a career year from a points perspective. How do you kind of mentally handle, am I going to jump up in the play? Like, how do you handle that split, knowing, is that something you're consciously thinking about, or when you're going to jump up, when you're going to sit back?
I don't really think about it too much. Obviously it's dependent on the partner you have. If you match up with the D partner is a little bit more offensive, I know I have to stay back. But in terms of just thinking about points, really just the less you think about it, usually the more they come. If you're constantly worrying about points, then that's usually whenever you get into a slump. So, the way I've learned is just don't really worry about it. Just worry about defensive game, and kind of everything will go from there.
Well, the past weekend, obviously huge from a defensive standpoint, and overall, what do you think the biggest keys were to taking all 4 points in Huntsville?
Away games there, you don't have to really put on too much of a performance. You just got to get, a win each night. they were struggling coming in, and we just had to frustrate them, and that's what we did. And the first night they thought they could play a skill game, and we frustrated them, beat them the first night, and second night they came out, thought they were going to be tough guys, and that's clearly not their game, and just took it to them the second night too.
Yeah, it was fun to watch, that's for sure. But looking ahead to the next 2 weekends, a lot of familiar faces coming into town, 5 games at home, Pensacola, Fayetteville, Birmingham, 3 teams that the team has played a lot already this season, and they're all playing good hockey right now too. What are the things that the team's looking to succeed, obviously carrying over the momentum from this past weekend?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of good things come out of the weekend. It's always being on top of checks, being on top of guys, really just frustrating teams and playing with confidence, really. There's a big thing between playing with confidence and arrogance, and I think if we're confident but we put in the work and, don't really give teams, a shift off, then I really like our chances.
Yeah, for sure. We've got a couple of questions that were submitted ahead of time. One says, growing up in Texas, a lot of other sports are more popular than hockey, but you chose hockey. Why is that?
Yeah, no, football is definitely number one in Texas, but I was actually born in Alaska, and with just everything about Alaska, you're kind of born into it. Didn't really have a choice. But, I played them all growing up, baseball, hockey, golf, football, but, I just ultimately just enjoyed hockey the best.
Yeah, for sure. One more. When you're playing, I kind of already asked this one, but it says, when coach puts you with a new partner, how difficult or easy is it to adapt to that on a game-to-game basis?
It's definitely a challenge. You got to be a quick learner, learning whether, the guy you're partnered with is offensive or defensive, and just kind of playing to his strengths. I think, if, you and your partner aren't really butting heads with who's going to jump up or who's going to stay back, and you guys are just more cohesive, I think it's, really a recipe for success.
It's got to be a true partnership, right?
Absolutely.
We'll go ahead and open the floor for if anybody's got anything they want to ask Parker here before we get Coach Dave up front. Anybody have anything for Parker? No? All right, let's let him hear it, and then we'll have Coach up at the front. Thank you, Parker. All right, everybody, let's welcome Coach Pszenyczny up to the front. Talked about it with each of the guys, but obviously a huge 2-game sweep. The first time that Macon has swept Huntsville in Huntsville since 2017. Obviously, a huge series, but just how big was it, can you say?
Yeah, I think after coming off the weekend prior to and not really enjoying our effort in 9 full periods with the Birmingham and the Pensacola trip, you're kind of left with, all right, how are we going to do in practice? And we really weren't happy with that either. And you and I have chatted about it, and also Danny, that sometimes the team will surprise you, and, they did a tremendous job this weekend. I thought our attention to details were spot on. I thought we outchanced them definitely in game 1 on Friday night. And then, they poured it on in the second period of game 2, but kind of how we're built, we expect that, and it was just the last 3 and some odd seconds were pretty interesting. Yeah,
100%. A huge comeback in the late stages of that second game. Every game the rest of the way is against a team that's within 8 points on either side of Macon, either in front of or behind. Do you do anything to keep the team focused on a day-to-day basis, or is that something that you kind of trust them to handle themselves at this point?
Yeah, you've built that trust with the team, the players, to get it done. Parker had spoken about it, and obviously Steph, recently coming back and, already knowing some of the players and how we play here. And, he said it best: when you work hard and your details are good, you get rewarded. And it gets frustrating time and time again when you get the opportunities, but I truly feel that somehow, some way you get rewarded. And maybe what we were lacking at the beginning of the season, maybe we're getting some bounces here and there, but we work for those. And I think that might be the difference of why we're kind of trending up right now. And that's what you want, right? As you get closer to playoffs, doesn't matter who you're playing as much as we could pre-scout, because as soon as playoffs start, you're going to see 3 teams in a very, very quick fashion. I know they expanded the second and third round, but that's still a very quick series to get those 5 games done. So if we focus on us and not so much on the other team, we share with them the tendencies, but at the end of the day, it's our game. We don't have to change much. We just have to put forth the effort.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of on the ice, this team's done a lot of their work over the last little bit at 5-on-5. Penalty kills obviously been good. Power play came through this past weekend. Down the stretch, are you more concerned with the team's play at 5-on-5, or is there an emphasis on special teams when it gets down to it?
Yeah, I guess special teams are gonna be a big factor, and I think the hardest part is not knowing how the game's going as far as from the officiating standpoint of the flow of the game, right? We've had a couple games now where we've had 2 officials be able to call penalties, and they're not even on the same page. And it's probably frustrating for them, because most of the games that they're officiating, they're by themselves. So I think maybe they just need a few more reps and consistency in that, and you'll see a little bit better. But at the end of the day, you never know when you're going to get a call thrown your way. You see how many times in any game, any level, that the puck goes over the glass, it's a delay game. You can't really prepare for that. So I think at the end of the day, our PK is our strength. It's been climbing. I think we were not even 2 weeks ago in like 9th, 8th percentage-wise, and now we've risen up to 5 and 6, just depending on how many other games are played after the weekend. But and the power play, we're getting good looks. I think the frustrating thing for us is our break-ins at times. Sometimes we have really clean break-ins, and then our end zone's not the best, or it's the other way, right? But at the same time, we came up clutch with the power play goal this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a huge goal. Talked about it with Steph. College season's starting to wrap up. Are there any particular areas that you're looking to improve on, or what kind of traits are you looking for in guys as you're recruiting them here to Macon as the season comes to a close?
I think, if you could find a diamond in the rough that you could bring in for a playoff stretch, that's great. I know it's probably a tall ask, especially when the good teams aren't going to be available till later. Steph, perfect example. His team went very far last year, so you don't get that opportunity to bring those players in to qualify for playoffs. So you're basically trying to get a good look at a player for the following season, right? So that's the whole idea with that. I mean, I know you got Canadian universities that had just finished up this past weekend, but once again, the better teams are still playing. And those are kinds of guys are going to the ECHL right now, and depending on how they do, they either stick the rest of the year, or they might just shut her down and call it a summer.
Well, obviously, the team is a little fortunate in the regard that they end the season with a 3-3, so you have a little bit more buffer on the back end to get those guys playoff eligible. But for sure, looking for those diamonds in the rough. Another thing, the playoff field, it's coming right down to the wire, as we've known it will for a couple of months now, honestly. Are you concerned at all with positioning in the playoff field, or is it just more of get in and play who you play?
Get in and play whoever you play. I think at the end of the day, we saw it last year with 6 and 7 going all the way to finals. There's really not a team that we haven't faced that we're worried about. I don't say that boastfully. I just think our game matches up very well against most teams. There's maybe one team that has our number right now, but I think that's just the difference between a bounce here and there in those games. So we're just preparing the guys to play the right way when it comes playoff time. And, as much as you see high scoring games, 7-6, they might be fun for the fans, but it's
You're not going to see those in the playoffs.
Yeah, you're not really going to, unless it's an elimination game and it's already 3-1 and the other team's just pushing for offense.
So on the playoff note, some people have said before that in the SPHL there can be an advantage to being the lower seed in the matchup because you get game one at home. And then if you win that one, you have the other team on the ropes for the rest of the series. Do you think there's some truth to that, or is it a little bit overblown?
I think it plays a big factor. But also, too, it depends on location of the team you're playing, right? So if you're playing a closer team, you're probably going 1-1-1 for the first round. I mean, from my experience, we've done a series where we played game one and then had to travel to Fayetteville and, play 2 more games. We actually lost that first game. So I don't know. At the end of the day, you got to win 2 games out of the first 3, and truthfully, it doesn't matter if you're on the road or not. I mean, I think we're a very comfortable team on the road. Parker said it best. We don't have to put on a show. We just got to come out with the win, whether that's in a shootout in the regular season. But we also know in playoffs, it doesn't matter. Like we've shown we've played a lot of overtime hockey so far.
Yeah.
So. But it's just a little bit different when it's 5-on-5.
I've run out of space on my shootout tracker sheet for my game notes. The team's got a big homestand coming up, 5 games, longest of the season. Very similar to last year, earlier in the season than it was last year, but I believe last year it was the final 7 of 9 or something like that were at home, and the team didn't get it done. What do you do differently this time around? Obviously it's a different group of guys, different group of players, but it's a very similar situation.
Yeah, I think the guys from last year have that experience now, right, and understand what it's going to take to achieve the goal that we're trying to all achieve here. So that's a big factor for us, going into this, but also too, both guys earlier had mentioned how tight-knit group this team is, and sometimes that's a scary thing when you're facing a team that all has that same mentality. So at the end of the day, Taylor and I will prepare them as best as possible, and we're fully confident in the leadership group and the individuals getting the job done when they step on the ice.
7 of the last 11 on the road, so a big opportunity over the next couple weeks. Trade deadline is coming up next week before the end of that, before that series against Birmingham, I should say. Last year, a couple of moves on deadline day, but not really much leading up to that, just around the league. You mentioned how tight-knit the group is. Is that something you're happy with, or are you looking to actively upgrade?
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking to improve if we can, and I think the hardest part is you might need something today, but tomorrow you might need something different, with call-ups, injuries, whatever. There's a lot on the wire right now from all the teams. I just can't imagine the names that are out there moving. I think it's a lot of fishing around to see what's out there. I like our group, though. But, at the end of the day, Taylor and I will just have to make the moves that we see fit.
100%. Got one in here. It says, how difficult is it to keep this team focused on what makes the team successful and competitive?
I think it's difficult, right? Because when you're going through practice and you're battling against each other and you're trying to be mindful of hey, we're going into a 3-3, so we still need to feel body in practice, but we also don't want to risk injury too at the same time. Same thing with power play. It's very difficult to practice in this league, especially with low numbers, a 5-on-3, because 5-on-3 you should be blasting one-timers. Well, I also don't want guys blowing out an ankle because they got to defend it. So it is taxing, and it's kind of, you got to jumble things around, but at the end of the day, if we're doing what we have to do in practice with good reps, good effort, and high intensity, it should carry over come game day.
Go ahead and open the floor here in-house. If anybody's got anything for Dave, also send them in on Facebook. But, anybody here have anything for Coach? Got one right here first.
Coach, is there anything you do different about this last weekend in Huntsville? Anything you as a coach do differently?
So the question was about if a team shifts their game plan drastically like Huntsville did this past weekend between game 1 and 2, how does that change for you individually?
I thought it was kind of unique how, I don't know if people are aware, but that kind of all started in warm-ups. They were asking our players to fight, and, I'm not out there. I just witness it when I'm on my laptop, and, going back to our tight-knit group, like nobody was going to back down. So I think that kind of put them on their heels, like, well, they thought they were going to intimidate us. But if you look at their roster, there's really nothing to be intimidated about, at the end of the day. So why that game plan was in place for them, I understand it from a team that just lost 4 straight at home, and the pressure's on. For us, it was like, all right, like we'll go blow for blow then. And it was kind of a unique thing that Taylor and I talk about. Each game has momentum, and as much as we always want to score on the power play, you can still generate momentum by getting opportunities and keeping them on their heels, even though you don't score. You could gain momentum on the penalty kill by obviously killing it, but every time they break in and you're denying them and you're sending it 200 feet, it gets very deflating. Players typically start yelling at each other because, well, you should have passed it or you should have, dumped it. So they get internally frustrated, and, you kind of take it as a compliment, or at least the coaching staff did, that when you have to resort to intimidation factors against our group, then we could just go out and play our game. So it was good that the players didn't cower. So it was really nice to see.
On that note, got one here in the chat that says, great job for the guys not letting themselves get baited into fights. What do you say to them to help with this, kind of help them keep cooler heads?
Yeah, I think the bigger goal is we're all striving for something better, right? We've had individuals this past season that had struggled with retaliation. And, at the end of the day, it's hard to tell somebody to keep their emotions in check. It's a very emotional game out there. I was guilty as a player. And then once you realize that you're playing for something bigger, it starts to click, and you turn the other cheek and you just go out and play, and it frustrates the person even more. And I think the hardest part now in the day and age where there's social media, everybody has cameras, everybody's posting and tagging people, it's hard for players at the end of the day, because even though it's just that moment, we see it all the time with pictures and in politics and newspapers that it could be slanted a different way, right? You could take the fight with Mayday and Fries the other night, and you could slant it one way or the other, but if you're truly there watching it, you see it was just a high-spirited bout. But yeah, it's got to be difficult for guys to understand that, but once they do and they're starting to realize it, it's much better, because I'll tell you what, it was pretty special watching our players, go and celebrate with Boyko on Saturday night.
On his birthday, too. Anybody else got anything for Coach?
So you talked about the second period in Huntsville, how they're really pouring it on, but like when you zoom out, you look at a broader sense of the analytics of the game. Do you like how the game break down for us in terms of offensive time possession, defensive time possession? Is the game balanced the way you and Taylor kind of want it to be?
Just generally asked if you were happy with the way that the analytics broke down this past weekend.
Maybe not in the moment for the second period, but we understood what we were kind of going up against, a desperate team, right? Losing that many games at home is very uncommon for that group. Like, they don't know how to lose, so they're reaching for anything, for physicality, intimidation, and they don't really have the clientele or the personnel to play that style. So we started seeing their skill kind of come up, and in the second period, they had some power plays as well that contribute to that as well. But I thought our players did a really good job by being even keel, and I think that's what kind of led to their demise there in the last 3 minutes. They score a goal with 3 minutes to go up, and you would think, you probably should close this game out. But when you come over and taunt the bench the way they did and saying what they did, it kind of brought something else out of us. So it's one of those things where in the moment, maybe we look back, after playoffs are all said and done, and it's like, was that the turning point of of the team kind of coming together, because there was no, even at that time, I still felt confident in the group getting the job done. And maybe the process was like, we're still going to tie it, but maybe we got to win this in overtime or shootout. But Taylor and I were talking about it on the bus after, and he said the same thing. Like, I never felt like after they scored, like we were done. So that just accounts of the confidence we have in the group and what they've shown.
100%. Anybody else got anything here? Got one online that says, how's our captain's recovering doing? Just asking about Alex.
Yeah, no, he's still involved with us. He's always in the group chats. He's, texting between periods and, giving us the eye in the sky update, right? Because what we see on the bench is maybe different from what he's seeing. And then obviously if anybody's in the building, sees it differently. So, we're trying to keep him involved as much as possible. And, on the medical side, it is what it is, right? And we're just kind of, we can't really rush the recovery on it, but no, he's still full of confidence. He's still a part of the team and a big part of it.
Absolutely. Got one here.
So you signed Macon, maybe just for a week. When you have those conversations, are you pretty straightforward with them? If it's like, hey, we need you for the weekend, or like, hey, we need a body, and this is an opportunity for you guys, let those conversations go, or go, into Greenville just for like 2 days, and then are those conversations being honest between those players?
Yeah, just asked about how those conversations shake out when you have a player going on call-up or bringing a guy in for the weekend, like it ended up working out with Bacon.
Yeah, so, going with Boyks' call-up, he fully was transparent with Greenville, like, hey, I see you guys, they wanted to call him up, and he's like, I'm playing Friday with Macon, and they were like, cool, we just need you for, Wednesday, Thursday, in need of relief if something unfortunate happens. And same thing with Seth. We had an unfortunate kind of out of the blue scenario that popped into our office during the week and got us down to 5 defensemen. So it's really tough right now when you see teams playing the IR game and hiding players. There's not much out there, right, that you can claim on the waiver wire. So I like to think that Taylor and I have a really good relationship with other coaches in both leagues, the Federal League and the ECHL. We're all in the same profession, so it's the more open and honest you are, I think you kind of get that back. And, Blue Ridge didn't have to send us a guy, and I just said, hey, I need a guy for these 2 games. He'll come right back to you. And, I held up my end of the bargain as much as we liked his play. He did a great job. He was actually a guy that was, willing to get into some fisticuffs there if need be. Which is kind of unorthodox of a player who comes in, right? You kind of want to fly under the radar and just kind of get in, do your job, and go. But even bringing him in, he felt like a normal player that had been here for so long, and I think that's a credit to the group that's in the room, bringing him in, opening, with open arms, and hey, this is how we play here, and it was kind of refreshing to see that. And but yeah, at the end of the day, as a coach, you don't want to lie to another coach or try to take advantage of them, right? Because the last thing I would want is I'm being told one thing about a player that went up, and now I'm being strung on for too long. So typically when a player goes up, hey, what's the time frame? And they're pretty honest with me for the most part, and that's all you can ask for. And sometimes there's things that are out of your hands that pop up, and the player needs to stay longer. But at the end of the day, we should be receiving most of our guys back, so it'll be good.
Yeah. Anything else? Nope. All right. Thank you guys for coming out tonight. Definitely appreciate having you here. Next coach's show will be on Monday the 9th, so go ahead and mark your calendars for that one, and we'll see you then. Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, Ron.